Africa, in Nairobi. So how do you see that aspect and sort of the competition that comes from regions like Africa in this case?
Yeah, I mean, there's an inevitability, and whilst most investors don't say it, cost didn't feature on the chart, but cost is an exceptionally important part of any economic business case for investors. And that high velocity work, the call center, contact center work, which is, kind of getting slightly overtaken by some of the hubris around and stories around AI, but what we call that high velocity work, I think there's an inevitability that the Southern Hemisphere, by dint of the fact of economics, it's exceptionally cheap to operate in East Africa, in Rwanda, in Kenya, in Ethiopia. And so putting yourself into an international marketplace for those types of services will be challenging. And ultimately, as AI starts to benefit and flow through into customer experience, there's an inevitability of that work drifting to lower cost locations. As an outsider, a Brit from the EU, so obviously we've made the decision not to be part of the EU. I will say from an investor perspective, there are exceptionally important bits of the service that we do around customer experience and shared services, things like cybersecurity, things like customer contact management, things like shared services, where the intellect and scope of those services requires regional talent, so picking up on some of the things that Martin talked about with the regionalization and specialism. And we get a lot of clients who are looking for those skills, and Poland has reinvented itself over the last 15 to 20 years. Look north, what they've done has been absolutely amazing, but they're at the point of saturation. So clients come to me now and say, where's next? Where's next in Eastern Europe? Where do we go next for cyber skills? Where do we go next for these technological skills that will support inside EU service delivery? And that's, I think, where Stara Zagora can start to play a part in. Look north, look what's done there, and it doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to be thousands. I think Ian was saying microservices and being able to start those microservices is exceptionally important in our industry.
And you've been going around the world as well, looking at how countries and regions are positioning themselves.
Yep.
And what are your reflections on that? And what are the lessons learned for places like Stara Zagora?
Well, you've heard me say it so many times. So often a region will talk about its capability. It'll talk about its features, it'll talk about access to talent and this amazing property and all this kind of stuff, but they fail to recognize what's going on in the source market and really understanding what the buyer is looking. So you need to look through a buyer's eyes rather than look through the seller's eyes. And very often, we look very inwardly, and a lot of regions will look very inwardly at their own capability and not outwardly to say, well, how do I make the proposition that I have locally? How do I help the talent that I've got locally, put them onto an international stage to be able to perform on an international stage? And that transition, you can do a lot of selling. There are a lot of these things going on all around the world, and the noise that comes with it, I think that's the most important thing, is really getting into the buyer's mind, into the investor's mind, and understanding how capital flows in this sector, particularly for GBS, and really putting yourself
global
in
business
the place
services,
of the buyer.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, even yesterday we were talking about the internet speed here, which
Yep.
is exceptional,
Yep.
and something to boast about. But from an investor's perspective, and a lot of them that come here, the first thing they do is looking at internetspeed.com or whatever the URL is, and checking the internet and being actually surprised. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to an Italian gentleman who happens to be in Kiev right now in Ukraine,
Yeah.
and he was super surprised that the speed now at wartime, the speed of internet is 500 plus.
Yeah.
Megabytes per second. So it is something that he could only dream about and now he lives in the northern part of Italy, in Milan. So you would expect that Milan, would have that speed way.
Well, this is another big disruptor. Yeah. So accessibility and connectivity, fiber, and all of the things that go into the cables. Everybody talks about the cloud, but most of the cables are under the sea. Is satellite broadband, and we shouldn't underestimate that will be another major disruptor. What Starlink have done, and what Starlink will do, and what Kuiper will do, which is Amazon, Jeff Bezos also firing up satellites, what these two guys will do is really disrupt connectivity and communication. So I've got Starlink, standing on the top of a mountain, in the middle of the sea in a boat, you've got full broadband access. And these things translate into big shifts in what our industry does from the point of view of services, because I am now work from anywhere, literally work from anywhere. And I think these are the disruptors that we'll start to see with the shifts in accessibility having a big effect on our sector.
Stephen, your thoughts about positioning of Stara Zagora versus other competitors out there?
Yeah, I think what we're really talking about here is the power of connectivity, and an impressive discussion last night about the 5G and other telecommunications infrastructure in Bulgaria that you can build on, it seems to me, particularly in a region like this. But when we're talking about connectivity, what we're talking about is the ability, back to Martin's point, feeding human beings, allowing them to learn and learn faster and to develop their talents. And this is happening more and more, the more connected we become. It's a point that was made about 12 years ago. I went to an amazing event with Peter Diamandis, the head of the X Prize Foundation, and he had said then, people don't understand what's happening over the next decade is going to be the most innovative time in the history of the world because of connectivity, because we're bringing more talented young people online from all over the world. And somewhere out there, there's a new Einstein, a new Marie Curie, there's a new Richard Feynman, and she or he is 5 years old in Africa or a part of Asia or a part of Europe. And the difference now is they're getting exposed to information and feeding back information at a rate that's never happened before. So the whole world is a giant conversation, and the key here, and the point has been made a few times, is to focus on the strengths of the region and double down on those, it seems to me. And then the other really important thing is education that we've talked about, to educate young people to know how to learn, be skeptics, and be learning machines. We were talking about this last night, to be adaptable for a future that is utterly unknowable with the speed of change and with AI and other technologies.
If we look at the recent, I think it was published last year, report by the World Bank about the future of work, there are actually two key skills of the future. One is technology adoption, and the other one is reinvention. So we will have to continuously think about that process. That would be my final thought, but I want all of our speakers to summarize their thoughts today with just one single sentence, perhaps with some advice from them coming to Stara Zagora. And I'm going to start with Martin. Go ahead.
Well, that's a tricky one. Put me on the spot here. I think I would echo what has been said by pretty much everyone. I think education is key, and sort of it's not directional learning. It is learning to treat or to deal with new technology to sort of operate on that end.
Thank you. Ian?
So what is the question? Could you just reiterate?
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Elias, your turn now.
Go and talk to companies in Max 4 focal sectors.
David?
That was very succinct. I'll come back to the point, be curious, and be curious about technology and focus on those things where you can make a difference.
I love that. I'll echo that with keep reading, keep talking and meeting new people. If you're not going to lunch with somebody new every week, at least once, you're not doing it right. And be little learning machines. We all must disrupt ourselves going forward.
Yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was super exciting to have you join us this morning, especially for Ian in New York. I know that for him it's literally the middle of the night, so thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. And Martin, the same. He had to wake up very early in the morning in Sao Paulo to be able to join us. But we are particularly grateful to the two of you. And of course, the three excellent speakers who joined us on stage. I would like to ask you for a round of applause for all of them. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we're now going to a 20-minute coffee break, and we will restart. Let me just double check the time. We are going to start, we're almost on time. We're going to restart our session at 11:05, I think. Is that okay? 11:05. So if you haven't had a chance to exchange some business cards, speak to some of the speakers and guests, do it right now, and we will continue with 2 sessions after the break. Thank you very much. Oh, I did.